We begin. Today's opening words are an excerpt from a letter, the first letter written by the Reverend Aaron Barabash in our partner church in Abásfalva to the Reverend John Gibbons 22 years ago. We are proud that a parish with an esteemed past and principles founded in freedom has chosen us to be their sister church. We accept your offer, but would like to emphasize the importance of aid in the form of cultural exchange. We invite you, urge you to come visit us so that you can get to know us personally and get a glimpse of our everyday lives. Please join me in singing hymn number 69, Give Thanks. Please remain standing and join me in the unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. It's great to see all of you, and it's great to hear all of you. Wow. My first experience in choir when I was a kid in church was singing, that made me fall in love with being in a choir, was that piece of music. And so I just want to say you sing it so well, and I loved hearing you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Parish in Bedford. Welcome to new visitors and to old friends. Here in this church, human beings have gathered for centuries, seeking a higher purpose and a deeper life than they could find alone. Here, the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is at hand. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, which means we are united by shared values rather than creed. We value love, respect, democracy, inquiry, truth, justice, and joy. Here, we celebrate the many diversities among us: age, race, class, differing abilities, sexual orientation and gender identity, religious and political beliefs. Welcome, everyone, and welcome also to those who are joining us on TV this morning. And if you are out there in the wider community, or if you're John Gibbons waking up on your sabbatical, we're glad you slept in and are joining us now. My name's Megan Lyons. I'm one of the ministers here, and Laura Scholten is leading the service today, and she's our student minister, and it's really an honor to be a teaching congregation. It's really great to be able to support her in her learning experience, supporting the growth of our ministry, and it's great to hear what she has to say. So thank you, Laura, and thank you to all of the parishioners who are also going to speak this morning to tell us some of their stories and experiences from our partner church relationship with the Abásfalva community in Transylvania. Following the service, we invite everyone back to coffee hour. You can head through the doors behind me. You can stop at the welcome table, find out a little bit of information about us, or find out ways to stay involved, or tell us about yourself. And if you'd like to stay in touch and tell us how to reach you, send a parishioner. It's our newsletter to you. You can find a little blue connection card in your pews and leave it in the offering basket later. You can also do that online, and we hope you will find us online. There's an announcement section in the back of the order of service. It's great to get your announcements into our office midweek, so check those out and send them in early. I would like to highlight that we are so lucky to have Vicki Kennedy, who is the wife of the late Senator Ted Kennedy. She's coming here to speak on Wednesday. I know many people may be at work during that time, but she's coming here at 3:30, and we'd like to thank Alma and Brian Hart for helping make it possible to have her here. She's going to be talking about the plans and progress for the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate, and also sharing memories of the late Ted Kennedy. Let's see, on Monday, there is a amazing film series created by Ron Cortez. It's the second in a 6-part series. It's at 7 right here at the church, and it's called The Long Strange Trip. It's the birth of Unitarianism, and it's a journey through 2,000 years of Unitarian Universalist history. It's made really well. People study it in seminary. People at other churches show it as their film series, and we hadn't shown it here yet. And Ron took a lot of time and energy, toured around the world to make it, and we hope that you'll consider joining us at 7 or any other Monday for this one or 4 more after that. Let's see. The auction was previously in the spring. This year it's in the fall. It seemed like it worked better schedule-wise. So we have an auction coming up November 15th. Don't miss it. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't signed up online to volunteer in some way or to donate something, we encourage you to do that. Information is online, and you can read about it in your parishioner. So stay tuned for the auction, November 15th. Lastly, Parish Council meets today at 12:30. If you are a committee chair, did you know we have 35 committees here at First Parish? If you are a committee chair, or you're one of the people who is now heading one of the 9 newish teams, like a disruptive innovation team, the Access for All team, any of these wonderful First Parish is alive and well teams, come on up to 202 at 12:30. Lastly, welcome. We're really glad that you are here. And now, a time for all ages. I want to say also, the kids today are doing something cool. They are doing, you're about to talk about that. No. Thank you. 2 brains at work. Next week we have a single service at 10. And so don't come at 9, come at 10. And today in RE, kids are learning about our partner church kids in the Khasi Hills, and they are making friendship bracelets for a day that's celebrated over there called Friendship Day. Thank you. Welcome, Lisa.
Sorry, those were quick notes to and from each other. So next week at the 10 o'clock RE time, the kids will be making the friendship bracelets for the children in the Khasi Hills for Friendship Day. You're welcome. And if you come at 11 o'clock to the service, you'll miss the service. Good morning. So I've been telling stories about a child named Tango, and Tango learning things about the stone, which we've been calling the touchstone. And today I'm going to tell about my stone, one of my stones. When I go to special places, or when I go somewhere and it begins to feel special, I like to pick up a stone and bring it home with me to remind me about these special places. And the one I have with me today is from a little village in Transylvania called Abásfalva. And that is our partner church. And I like holding my rock because it brings me back memories about the people and places where I've been. And this one reminds me of many, many stories from my visit in Abásfalva. And this morning I'm going to tell you one in particular, which is a little embarrassing, but we all make mistakes and we learn from other cultures. So, the thing about Abásfalva is, the thing that I want to talk about is trash. At the beginning of the village, at the beginning of the road, is a very, very large fenced-in area that is for trash. And the country says, in Romania, they say, you have to put your trash there and then it gets picked up. And I passed that trash place a bunch of times, and I only saw about this much trash anytime I was ever going by it, only this much. The people in Abásfalva don't really make trash. They use everything, and they use it and find new ways to use it, and they don't have waste. And so my story is about the home that I stayed at. I stayed at the home of Esther and Janus. And Esther has beautiful, beautiful flowers. It was summer, and beautiful flowers all overhanging and planted. And up her walk were petunias. Now, what I've always learned about petunias is that if you want to keep them growing, you should deadhead them. Deadheading means when the flower has gone by and is wilted and beginning to dry out, you pick it. And, in my yard, I just sort of pick it and toss it into the more fuzzier bushes. But I saw that there were a lot of flowers kind of going by, and I thought, I'll help her out here. I'll do her a favor, and I'll deadhead her petunias. So I was busy deadheading the petunias when Esther came running out, waving her arms and screaming at me in Hungarian. And we didn't speak the same language, but we did find ways to communicate. And what I learned was, you don't deadhead the petunias. You let them turn dry, and then you pick them and you save the seeds inside the flowers. Oh. So she gathered up all the flowers that I had deadheaded, and then she taught me what to do. And before I left, she gave me an envelope with a bunch of her petunia seeds in them for me to take home and grow. There's another thing about Esther. She's a weaver, and she used to have a big loom, and she wove everything, curtains and cloth for clothing and for towels and just everything. And what do you do when you've got scraps left from clothes that are worn out, or curtains that are worn out, or blankets that are worn out? Another thing that Esther gave me was a rag rug. And what Esther did with all her scraps and things that were left behind was she would weave them into rag rugs. And I don't know the stories that are inside this rag rug, but I know there are plenty of stories. And I know there could be Janus's pants and some blankets and some curtains from any place in the village, and maybe parts of an apron or a dress. So this is real special to me, and I use it. It's very sturdy, and it's in my home, and it always reminds me to use and use and use and reuse until you use it up. And that is the story of something that I learned on my trip to Abásfalva.
And kids and teachers are going to head out to their in-gathering, and we're going to sing. This is a hymn called Find a Stillness. It, of course, comes from the part of the world that we're talking about today. The text was originally in Hungarian, but this is Find a Stillness, number 352, and we'll be singing it in English. My name is Megan, and I am the stand-in for the lay pastoral folks. Each of them had a commitment this morning. Now is the time in our service when you are invited to light a candle of joy or sorrow, something on your mind or in your heart. And just to re-say this, we don't tape this part. It doesn't go out anywhere but here in this room. And I will also stay after the service in case you'd like to light a candle in private. I am going to light one final candle for all of the joys and the sorrows that we keep in our minds and hearts this morning.
Good morning. I'm Brad Connor. I'm the music director here at First Parish. In Abásfalva, though, Brad is a totally English name. It doesn't translate into any other language besides English, so I go by my middle name, which is Laszlo. So, Laszlo Connor before you right now. And I want to tell you of a couple of experiences I had there. Of course, I'm the musician. You should know that in their churches, the organ is not up here. It's up there in the gallery. That's not unusual, except that the keyboard faces this way, overlooking the congregation, so that the organist is also what's known as the cantor to lead the hymns and sings out. He has the loudest voice in the congregation, sings out over the congregation while looking down on them and playing the organ. The organ at the church in Abásfalva, unlike our instrument here that's all nicely been electrified, in fact has bellows, and someone has to stand in the back and push the bellows up and down. So I was very thankful that the day after we arrived there, that Bill, Ben, and Ron climbed up in the organ loft with me, and they pumped the bellows while I got to play the organ. It was just great. You should know that in their hymn book, where we have the nice 4-part harmony, they have only the line of melody. They have no harmony whatsoever. The organist has to make it up as you go along. It's in Hungarian. No hymn is less than 5 verses. Usually it's 8, and they're taken at a very slow tempo. So next time that you complain that a hymn is too long, think of that. But I want to tell you, my Abásfalva gave me the gift of one of the most perfect days in my entire life. Just imagine this. If you need to close your eyes, do it. Sitting outside the parsonage, grass is green, reading a book, beautiful flowers, chickens quietly pecking in the yard, bees buzzing as they go from flower to flower. In the distance, you can occasionally hear a cowbell because the cows are grazing up on the hillside. And a horse-drawn cart goes by the front gate. You're there for 3 hours. No Wi-Fi, no cell phone, no television. Just you, the sunshine, the cool breeze, and your book.
Hello, I'm Bill Rashard, and I had the unbelievable opportunity to go to Abásfalva this past August also. And what an unbelievable experience it is to experience the people who welcomed us with open arms, to experience their way of life, and to look at my way of life. And what I saw for the first time was a people have limited resources. They have a water system, but it does not always work. They grow their own food, and like Lisa said, they use everything up. And I had to remind myself where I was and coming there and impacting their lives for the brief time that we were there, to watch how I used their resources, water, their food, just to make sure that I did not impact them too much, because when we come back home, we go to our supermarkets, we have water, we don't think about limits and that it may not be there on a particular day, or electricity, but I had to remind myself where I was and make sure that I respected their way of life there and what they had and what they didn't have. But they grow their own food. They, everything they have is through hard work, and I was just very honored to be there and to experience that. And it has changed my way of thinking about how I live and what I do in my daily life. So if you ever have a chance to go, you must go and meet these people. They're wonderful. They're so welcoming, and it was a great experience.
Following up on what Bill said, I will tell you that As far as I could figure out, this is a community of mostly older people who never retire. They may be on pensions, but they still grow and make their own food. And the woman that we stayed with, Erzsébet, is around 70, and she works all the time. So the first the first evening that Ron and I were there, Erzsébet's two young grandchildren were staying with her, visiting from Budapest, and they had a little friend who spoke some English, and she did some translation for us. And so they had us come outside, and we went to one place in the village where all the cows were coming home. Every day, the livestock is taken up into the hills above Abásfalva. The goats and horses, the sheep and the cows. And around dusk, the shepherds bring them back through town, through the dirt streets of town. And so, at around 7 o'clock, this livestock just kind of shows up and comes into town with the cowbells ringing and running around, and they all know where to go. They all go to their compounds. So we're walking back, and this old farmer is standing outside of his compound, and his goats are going inside, and he says, "Come on in and see." He said, "Come on in." And so we go into the compound, and he lets all the baby goats out, and they rush up to their mothers, and there's, the mothers are getting, the adult goats are getting special food, and the baby goats are nursing from their moms, and all these goats were very, very happy, and so were Ron and I.
Well, I'm last. Okay, we've been asked to be brief, which was my intention all along, but I think I speak for all of us that if you want to talk to us more about this later, we'd all welcome it. And I've heard, I was here for the first service, and now I've heard 3 more, and it's amazing that we all came away with such different things from this trip. That's so wonderful. Our arrival in Abásfalva was planned so that we arrived just in time to go to church on Sunday morning. And as New England churches have their own distinctive architectural style, and we're in one now, so too do those in Transylvania. And I think you've all probably seen pictures of the church there, and they're all of that style. But they are, like our churches, they tend to be very plain and simple, and yet very beautiful in that simplicity. Tradition still has a sway in lives in Transylvania, and church is no exception, particularly in small villages. And one thing that stood out to me, and I think to all of us, was that in the church, the men and women sit on opposite sides. You come in, there's a center aisle like this, and the pews face each other, rather than facing the pulpit. And the pulpit is in the same place, though here it's up actually on a higher level, which is actually appropriate for a church that is sermon-oriented or evangelical. Unitarianism, as you probably know, in Transylvania, is a Bible-based faith. So our text and sermon that day were drawn from the Bible, and I found out later from the first epistle of Peter in the New Testament. John interpreted for me in my request to ask Pastor Aaron what the text had been, and he produced Bibles both in Hungarian and English and opened them up, and if I remember correctly, what he talked about that day was the passage on putting aside all malice and all guile and hypocrisy and envy and all slander. A good text for Unitarians, I think. Interestingly enough, this was not my first experience in sitting through a sermon in a language I didn't understand. When I was 15, I went with a YMCA troop to Germany, and we stayed in a very small town, and we attended a Lutheran service, all done in German, And it turned out the minister was bilingual, so he did make sure that all of us youngsters got to hear what the sermon was about, and later on gave it to us in English. I never did get a translation of Aaron's sermon because he was called away before we could discuss it any further, and I remember nothing of the sermon I heard in German many years ago, so I've ended up the same in both instances. Brad has told you a little about the organ loft. However, when they did the anthems, the organist moved down to the floor, and he had a portable keyboard, and the small choir gathered around him, and they did, 4 or 5 anthems, as I recall. That portable keyboard later found its way into the community center, where we were given lunch by our hosts, and it was up on a stage, and a young man was singing popular songs in Hungarian, none of which we, of course, recognized. And the keyboard was one of those ones that does all the work for you. It has a rhythm track, it has a background track, and I noticed when I snuck up on stage that he really was only playing with at most 3 fingers, but doing well. And you probably know what's coming next. Brad and I were asked to provide some American music. And so we gave them a few selections of Irving Berlin, George and Ira Gershwin, Cole Porter, and others, only to realize that this music was completely unknown to this audience. They have not been exposed to this kind of American music. However, they did enjoy it, and now we can say we made our Romanian debut. Beyond church, there is so much I could talk about, and I know, and others have touched on this, and there's so much more that could be touched on. The beauty of the valley and the surrounding hills, the remnants of a communist collective farm, and those of us who grew up during the Cold War, can you imagine that you'd ever see such a thing? I was particularly taken by the Seke gates, photographing everyone that I passed. I mean, really, every single one. I could make many more collages like the one that is here. A hillside cemetery in desperate need of mowing, yet no less the lovely for that. Walking everywhere. The incredible hospitality of our partner congregation. The food. Others have and will tell you about all those things. Thank you.
I'll speak while I walk. We've got 3 minutes left. We promised Laura 15 minutes. This morning they took 22 minutes and 30 seconds. So I will not take that long. My name is Rich Doherty. I have a lot of empathy for my friends in Abásfalva. In the last 20 years, Nancy and I have been there 9 times. This church has taken 10 formal visits. Almost 100 of the parishioners from here have visited this place, and it is transforming. My empathy comes from 51 years ago when I finally earned my degree in mathematics. I got the hell out of Dodge. Dodge was Merrim, Indiana, and in 1994, when we traveled into Abásfalva for the first time, I felt like I had been transformed back 50 years. There were young people in the village then. They're not there now. They've left and got the hell out of Dodge because they could. They finally were able to do so. But that village, those people, and the impact that it has had on the parishioners' lives here. Lori went for the first time. Diane and Ron went for the first time. Brad, Ben, and Bill went for the first time. What a joy traveling with the first-timers and experiencing with them the first time of a different place, a different way, and the impact it has on your lives. The story yet to be told is one that is sort of built up as we went. 20 years ago, Nancy and I met 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, 10, 12-year-old kids. They're not there anymore, but they are having children. They're grandchildren. We've met them. These people are like family to us. And we are planning, this is the story that's underway and yet to be told, a grandchild's visit to Abásfalva. The Abásfalvan minister's son, Aaron, whom many of you have met, lived with Nancy and I here in the United States, here in Bedford, for 12 years. got his degree in computer science, and got the hell out of Dodge. We're going to go over there with our grandchildren, Aaron's child, the partner church minister's grandchild now, 2 other grandchildren from his children. In 3 or 4 years, he will have retired from the ministry. He's purchased a house in Abásfalva. It was like a pig pen when he first started. He's been working on it for the past 3 years. It's coming around, and guess what's in the backyard? A grandchild backyard. He is looking forward to this visit, and that is the continuing story. What I would wish is that all of you would have the opportunity and have the finances while it is still there to experience what this place is. Like it is here in the United States, these places are disappearing. You would not want to go back to Merrim, Indiana, except to visit the graveyard. That's what probably is going to happen to many of the Romanian towns, and it's happening to Abásfalva. It's still there, but as one of the speakers said, it's mostly old people now. Thank you. 2 more minutes.
Thank you for sharing those stories with us. On the first Sunday of each month, we donate half of our Sunday offering to the United Teen Equality Center, UTEC, in Lowell, and a Unitarian school in the Khasi Hills of India. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. Wow, that was incredible. This summer marked the 20th anniversary of our partnership with the Unitarian Church of Abásfalva. In August, I had the opportunity to visit Abásfalva along with my husband Donnie, and we were both transformed in more ways than we can express with words. Since I only spent a few days in the village, and I'm not nearly an expert about the region, I will tell the story of my visit from my point of view, including, eventually, one story in particular that stuck in my memory. We were on our honeymoon. Donnie and I were still lost in the romantic mist of a circa 1950s Chet Baker recording that was the first song played at our wedding, and it was easy for us to love everything. As the theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer once said, gratitude changes the pangs of memory into a tranquil joy. I am grateful to all the people of Abásfalva and the surrounding villages who welcomed us into their homes and treated us like family in the best way. My memories of Abásfalva give me a deep sense of hope for the future, both of Abásfalva and First Parish. My less romantic memories, however, also give me pangs of sadness, anger, and helplessness for the systemic injustices that seem too complicated for any one person to solve. Nowhere is perfect, but our partner village can sometimes feel like one of the last havens of something timeless and good in an otherwise corrupt and polluted world. Our friends there face political, economic, educational, cultural, ethnic, and generational conflict, as do we. We have so much in common and so many differences. The commonalities bind us together in strong companionship, and the differences make us strange and beautiful to one another. When I was there, I wasn't in touch with the internet or with any news. As a result, I wasn't thinking about the many frightening crises in the world today, like police in the US killing innocent African American men, ISIS massacring innocents in the Middle East, the Palestine-Israeli war, or the devastating Ebola epidemic that had already begun in Liberia. Thus, I was floating in a sort of happy bubble, everything seen through soft focus, and I enjoyed the homes and the gardens and the community of our friends as a world unto itself. Being present in one place, at the mercy of the passage of the sun across the sky and the activities of the people around, can feel claustrophobic or it can feel magical, sometimes both. At the very least, it required practicing fundamental social skills, like smiling with genuine happiness while clueless and confused, and becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. When our airplane touched down in Romania, many passengers clapped and cheered. We wondered if they were cheering from joy to be home or relief to still be alive. Either way, we were picked up at the airport by Danish, a retired Unitarian minister, formerly the Unitarian bishop's driver, and we also were picked up by the bishop himself, who was en route to the countryside to spend a week visiting his mother. The bishop explained local geography, history, and culture during our 4-hour ride through the picturesque, somewhat run-down countryside. Danish drove multiples of the speed limit on the narrow country roads, and 10 minutes in, Donnie tossed his cookies, followed by 4 more nauseating hours. When we stopped for lunch, which only some of us were able to eat, I had meatballs in broth and sour cream, and people were smoking indoors. The bishop expressed his love of sour cream and offered us palenka, which we politely deferred until the afternoon. Back in the car, the bishop informed us that there had just been an annual event in which 500 Transylvanian Unitarians gathered in a gorge to celebrate. Unitarian women compete on behalf of their villages for the best goulash. There are several ways to make goulash, I hear, which is a kind of soup with meat and beans. The bishop explained how he likes to make a cherry soup with sour cream. We met the bishop's mother, who had a large St. Bernard. Back on the road, we drove by small hayfields and agricultural fields, followed by more rolling hills covered in grass and wildflowers. We passed occasional villages, clusters of white plaster houses painted bright colors, with red tile roofs, grape arbors, and house gardens. The majority of houses had an adjacent fenced-in yard with a shed or barn attached for animals. As we approached Abásfalva, the paved road ended. The streets in the village were quiet. First Parish recently helped fund the installation of public water lines for all the village's residents, including the Roma villagers, who are not allowed to own property and who have higher rates of unemployment than the Hungarian villagers. According to our host family's son, who has a degree in Transylvanian history, there is a history of prejudice between the three ethnic groups of the Hungarians, Romanians, and Roma people, a conflict that is mostly non-violent, except for a recent revenge murder following a tragic motorcycle accident. At our host family's house, we met the church president, Attila Gergely, who is very jovial, and his beautiful wife, Rosica, both of whom were very hardworking the whole time we were there. We sat on the porch, cracking nuts and drinking beer. Inside the house, colorful handmade rugs like the one that Lisa showed were covering the floors. White embroidered cloths and lace made by the mothers and grandmothers is displayed on the walls and tables. Black and white photos of Attila's parents were taken down off the walls and handed around. He said they were very good people, and he missed them very much. For dinner, Rosica made us delicious chicken paprikash, for which the recipe is on the front of the order of service. And we ate with their only child, Attila, who is in his early 20s and works at a shipping truck company with his dad. The Gergelys moved to a larger town because there were not enough jobs in the village to support them, but they keep up the old family house for when they retire. There is a Roma woman who works for them who milks the family cows and lets them out the gate in the morning and back in at night. Despite the language barrier, Donnie and I had many lovely conversations with people we met in the village and the conversations were frank and from the heart. Donnie reminded me to share the story of the time young Attila's friend Tomasz, who hopes to be a doctor in the U.S. one day, asked if he would be accepted in the U.S., or if he would be treated like a second-class citizen. And we assured him that it was our sincere hope and our feeling that he would be accepted here. Donnie and I were also impressed by the Gergelys' garden, grape arbor, by Attila's homemade wine, his homemade palenka, and their barn. We're farmers ourselves, so we had a lot to talk about in our broken English and broken Hungarian. I thought, before this trip, I thought I liked outhouses. I thought they were kind of quaint, but after an unfortunate incident in which I was splashed, I now don't like them anymore. And never want to go to the bathroom in one. Besides countless small moments that surprised me or filled me with gratitude, one thing in particular happened that left a big impression on me. It was someone else's story that I overheard one day on a bus. One of our Transylvanian guides was talking about how she sometimes feels compelled to ask older villagers not to give away their family heirlooms, such as embroidered lace cloths or furniture, to American guests in the Partner Church program. One time, an old woman tried to give her a present that she couldn't accept. Our guide begged the woman not to give away her mother's embroidered towels, saying, "These are very special, and your daughters will want them." The old woman cried and said that her daughter had moved to the big city and refused to take them. The daughter had said that if her mother mailed them to her, she would send them back or throw them out. "What use do I have for old towels?" the daughter had asked. When the translator heard this story, she cried also, and relented, and she said, "In that case, I will take them, and I will display them in my home, and I will be honored to take your beautiful towels." This made the older woman extremely happy, and the translator, true to her word, keeps them on display in her house in the proper way as befits priceless family heirlooms. When I overheard this story, I wondered, what do I have that it is as meaningful to me as this woman's towels? Anyone who has tried to give a precious gift only to have that gift rejected knows how heartbreaking it can be. Giving and receiving gifts gracefully is a real skill. We can cultivate ways of giving and receiving gifts here that will honor the giver as well as the receiver. I said at the beginning that my memories filled me with a deep sense of hope for the future of Abásfalva and First Parish. It is my hope that we can welcome more of the members of our partner church to our home as our honored guests. More of us have traveled there than vice versa, and the depth of their hospitality and generosity is something that I believe few Americans experience, let alone have the good fortune to be able to reciprocate. Many of you have opened your hearts and your homes to friends from Abásfalva over the years and have been changed for the better. It is my hope that we as a family continue to find new ways to show our love and gratitude to our Transylvanian family. One way of showing our commitment to the ongoing work of our mutual partnership would be to help members of their church get the visas and support they need to travel to the U.S. for a reciprocal visit to us and our historical sites. Thank you, and as they say in Hungarian, köszönöm szépen, for the opportunity to go on this pilgrimage. Now please join me in singing hymn number 318, We Would Be One. Remain standing and join me in reading together our closing words from the order of service. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need.